my camera once Matt gets started. But I wanted to introduce Matthew Carter to you all today. Matthew is a friend of mine, and I wanted him to talk about the idea of having your budget and being in control of your finances, to have accountability for your finances. I have found in my life that I have made job choices because I needed a few extra bucks. I have stayed with a crappy company because I was making money and I needed to make that a certain amount of money. And so my desire would be that today you think about, how can you help people be responsible? How can you be responsible for your finances so you can actually live the life you want, not be stuck somewhere just because your salary whooped? The people of BCT who are recruiters and people working for people looking for jobs, great reminder to help your candidates who are looking for a job to think, hey, how are you doing with your budget? What's your burn rate? I assume you guys talk to them about that. But one of the great things you could do is send them to watch this video and say, in this time when you're in transition, be a really smart time to get your finances in order, and go watch this video that Matthew teaches some budget principles. So in 2019, my wife and I made a big decision that we needed to change our lives. We had a lot of debt. We had credit card debt and old taxes that I had postponed and wrote an IOU to the government as I was growing my business. And it kept getting bigger and bigger every year. And we just felt that it was irresponsible to live that way any longer. Matter of fact, in September, I got vertigo. I couldn't, hey, if everybody would mute their phones. Matthew, if you want to mute everybody. In September of that year, 2019, I got vertigo and I couldn't do anything for 16 days. I had vertigo for 16 days. And I thought, what if I can't earn any money the rest of my life and I have vertigo the rest of my life? We're screwed. And it was then we made a decision to change our lives. We reached out to Matthew and asked for help, because I had known that Matthew had learned the principles of good, healthy finances, personal finances, and budgeting. And so we engaged Matthew. It was very, very hard. We had to really come to terms with the way we spent our money, or the lack of attention to how we spent our money. And Matthew taught us how to have a budget, set up spreadsheets, gave us some time when we had to talk us off a ledge, because it was hard. There's a lot of emotion attached to money, especially if I see money one way and Kathy sees money a different way. So Matthew was a blessing to us. And during that process, we sold our house, paid off all of our debt, all our taxes, all our credit cards. And by March of 2020, we were debt-free and on a very healthy road to financial stability. And I say that even being debt-free, we're still on a road, because we still had to learn habits of how we spent our money and how we wanted to use it wisely. My goal for you today in this short amount of time with Matthew is to understand some healthy principles about how to look at money, how to view the money. It works for you, you don't work for it, and how to anticipate your money and spend it wisely so you get the best choices to make, and you can actually use your money to make it more fun for life. Matthew's going to spend some time with you today. And if you want to engage Matthew in the same way Kathy and I did, you can reach out to him directly after this is over. He'll give you his email address. I highly recommend him. If you are all dissatisfied with the way you've been spending your money and the life you're living because of the problems of money, hire Matt, get it fixed, embrace it, own the suck, get it done. So I'm going to turn this over to Matt and let him work his magic. Thank you all for coming on this call, and I'll just let Matt go from here.
All right. Well, let's see. Hopefully everybody can see my screen, and it should just be a blank screen that says budget planning. Does that look like that works?
Yeah, I see it.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, Robert, for the introduction. And
oh, sorry, Matt. It's not a blank screen with just one thing showing. I'm seeing all kinds of things. Is that what you meant?
Oh, yeah. Let me. Thank you. Let me flip that to the other screen then. Hang on.
And did you push the button to record the video, to set the video for optimization and all that?
Yep. I got it.
There you go.
There we go. All right. Yeah. Now you don't get to see what's behind the curtain, right?
Yes.
and in listening to Robert, I hope that when he said it was hard, it wasn't hard working with me, but it is hard to make and make the plans. I show this gear real quickly: budget and planning, and they work hand in hand together. It's all part of the process of putting things together. Anytime that you want something, you need to make a plan for it, and you need to budget for it. And we always look at, to me, buying big things, buying cars, buying houses. And I like to make budgeting fun. And I know Robert's a fun guy. We like to joke around. We like to enjoy it. And so to start this whole little thing off, I have a real great little Saturday Night Live video. It's 2 minutes long, so hopefully you can endure yourself through it, but it's some old school budgeting concepts. And so we're going to start with that first here. So hang on, let's have it. Okay, so there's my wonderful introduction to budgeting. I hope you got a good laugh on that. But
That's awesome. I love that video.
I try to show that to every set of people that I get together with, just to really get a laugh on this thing, because budgeting is it is extremely simple. And as we go through a couple of little steps, we'll kind of walk through it. And it's not rocket science, but it's not about math. It's all about behaviors and about making a plan and doing some things that we want to do with our money and telling it where to go. So real quickly, I just want to kind of review a little bit of what we talked about last month. 70% of America is living paycheck to paycheck. 2/3 of America do not have the ability to come up with $1,000 in case of an emergency, and what we like to call just an emergency fund. If your wheels were, tires were to go to bad, or something were to go wrong, something about an air conditioning thing, you'd have to pull out the dreaded credit card and make payments on it. And it's very difficult for people to kind of get out of that cycle. And so that's what we're kind of looking at with preparing a budget. Out of 10 people, 7 people are in that situation. If you were to go into a line at Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever your favorite fast food restaurant is, if there's 10 people standing around with you, 7 people are probably in this kind of a financial hardship, living paycheck to paycheck. Some of the things that debt does to you, again, creates a depression and an anxiety, a resentment and irritation, denial, stress, tension, regret. And the one big one that everybody likes to avoid is embarrassment, and that's why we have these credit cards, so that we can postpone the inevitable and just pretend like everything's going to be okay. Budgets actually give you the ability to spend money, and I know that sounds counterintuitive to what it is, and everybody thinks that if I create a budget, that means I can't spend any money. No, it's actually really the opposite. It allows you to create something and start spending. It allows you to tell your money where it's going. So with that, I'm going to pull up my first little spreadsheet here. And we're going to talk about budgets. And I know that, Robert has given us a full hour to do this. I'm guessing that through my excitement, I talk quickly. This may take less than an hour. Maybe 45 minutes. And if I talk fast, it'll take even less. But first of all, we've got 3 pieces that I'm going to go through today. The first one here is our monthly balances that we'll look at together. Then we'll look at budgets, the actual piece of the material. And then lastly, we'll look at some online pieces. And I know Robert wanted me to look at Mint software, which is a great little opportunity as well. So in all of my sessions that I talk with people, this is really where we start the entire process, is what does my balance look like? What do I actually have, both in terms of assets when it comes to cash, and in terms of debt when it comes to I owe things. And again, these spreadsheets, and I'll flip up another one here just so that you can, and I can pull these out. These are all free domain stuff pieces that I've put together, or other people that have put together. We can get as detailed as we want to with pictures and graphs like we're looking at here. But when we come right down to it, it's as simple as this is what it is for the month. And so this is a great one to look at, and I'll shoot my email up and phone number. We can always pass and shoot these things off to you guys as you need them. But I like to have people work on them themselves and create them. And this is basically where we started, is we create a month of December. We're coming up to, it's the 15th, 16th of the month today, setting up and looking at your bank accounts. What is it that you have in checking? What is it that you have in savings, your 401ks, and taking a snapshot. To me, I always like to look at this, and I know, this is where the kind of the rubber hits the road, is every month taking a look at what is it that your balance in your checking account looks like. And if you start doing that from, the month of December, or from last month in November, if your system has the ability to go back and look at that, creating a simple document that you can look at to say, hey, this is what I had at the beginning or at the very end of every single month, so that you can start building that rhythm. The next piece of your snapshot then, of course, is your debt. And everybody wonders, what is debt? Well, it's a credit card, it's an auto payment, it's a student loan, it's any other credit card. I've seen people with 2 or 3 gas cards. I've seen people with their Macy's cards, their Nordstrom cards. All of these things are debt, and we need to kind of make a record of them. And again, that goes, that's where that embarrassment goes. Sometimes it's hard to actually take the time to write all of these things down on a simple balance snapshot sheet. This one, again, of course, we can, key these in however we want to, and I love to name them exactly what they are. And whether it's the blue credit card, the black credit card, the Chase credit card, the American Express card, we get to put all of these things in. You put your notes down, and then this will calculate up and give you your snapshot balance. I can put in some numbers here real quick so we can just kind of look at it quickly. Your savings account, your 401k, and of course, each one of these things should grow month to month or shrink month to month, depending on what you're doing on going up and down on these types of things. Your credit card then again is the same type of thing. This way it allows you, whether you're a couple or a single person, to just look at, what is my ending balance? What is my net worth as far as loans and cash available to me? And if you guys have any questions, I do have my chat box up so that if I run too fast or if I need to go over something a second time, let me know. Just go ahead and feel free to chat in there. So that's my monthly balance snapshot. To me, that is my key focus that I really like to work on. And I know Robert and I worked on that every month to make sure that, we knew where our beginning balance was. Next step is budgets. Again, as simply as we possibly make it, we look at 2 sections. Section 1 is our income, and section 2 is our expenses. Now, I made this up so that it's simple to look at. Again, we look at our budget, and then we look at our actual pieces. So at the beginning of the month of December, at the beginning of January, we look at these things. We take a snapshot of what our income is, and we estimate that out, whether you get paid bi-weekly or the 1st and the 15th of the month. Sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge because if you're paid every other week, you're going to get 3 checks twice a year, and then you'll get 2 checks the 10 months out of the year. So it's something to kind of look at and to wander through. Then whether you have a spouse's income, you can put both of those in there. And then if you have other income, side jobs are a huge thing nowadays, or are you having a sale? Garage sales are huge, especially when you're trying to get a hold of your debt and kind of figure out what is a way to make some income. Expenses. The one thing I like to put on the top is charity and giving, making sure that, when we look at our expenses, we want to make sure that we are also being cognizant of, the money that we get is a great gift to us. And we need to make sure that we're spending time to give a little bit back wherever we can. And I always love and encourage people to find a charity, find something to give back to. Then we have our 4 main items in the expense lines. I've highlighted them in yellow here. Our home and rent, our auto, our food, and our clothing. Those are, to me, kind of that 4 standard things that, if everything else goes, those are the 4 things we definitely need. We need a place to stay. We need a place to sleep. We need a vehicle to get us from work and back. We do need food, and then we do need clothing. Now, many of these things like clothing, we can put on hold for a couple of months, 6 months, some of us longer than that. But there is something that we need to look at there. So being able to sit down and make sure that we can put those things together in a system that we can watch each and every month. So we create a column. I put column B there is your budget. So the first day of the month, you want to be able to go through and put down all of these things that you have. Now, your home and rent, you should know exactly what those are. Utilities, you should know plus or minus. Internet should be the same every month, cell phone, and then you can add to this as you go along. Health, doctor visits, prescriptions, some of those are known, some of those are unknown. And I always tell people that when I work with them, this is not an exact science. You're not going to get it right in the first month. In fact, it usually takes, with the clients that I've worked with, it usually takes about 3 months of setting a target number and then deciding whether or not that number works for you or not. One of the ones I love talking about is food, restaurant, and groceries. When we sit down the first time, somebody will look at that and they say, oh yeah, I spend X dollars in food. Okay, well, is that in restaurants or is that in groceries or is that in others? So we kind of walk through that, and sure enough, we'll put a number down there that's, say, $500. Well, when we go through in actuality, it ends up being $1,000. It might go up, it might go down. But there's always an exception. There's always a, oh yeah, because I forgot about this or I forgot about that. So there's a lot of things that we think we know what we're doing, but we don't. And until we put it down in writing, until we actually put some numbers here, we never really know exactly where some of those restaurants, groceries, prescriptions, doctor visits come into play. Last piece I like to always add in is subscriptions. Going through your credit card, going through your bank statements, and going through each one of them line by line and looking to say, oh yeah, that's a subscription. Let's put that down here. Let's make sure that we keep on target with all of the subscriptions that we're buying and using, and then being able to determine whether or not that actually needs to be there or not. Then of course we've got our actuals. Then as the month goes on, you get to key that in. Now I know this is a long and kind of a manual process, which it can be painful, and sometimes it's not exactly the funnest thing to do. But to me, always starting at the basic level and hand keying some of this stuff in, one, it gives you a chance to really look at everything that you're doing, and two, it gives you kind of that, to me, it's a pain point. It takes a little bit of time. It does hurt a little bit, but it's also very eye-opening to see where those things are.
Matthew?
Yeah.
I want to add at this point, when Kathy and I sat down to do this, this was very eye-opening because we did the math and we saw what was coming in and what was going out. And we realized the only way we were going to keep up with it was a credit card to cover the gap. And we just realized we're doing something wrong and making some really harsh changes. It was hard to imagine doing that at the time. But when you have it on a spreadsheet and you're looking at the numbers don't lie. And as much as we felt like we seemed to be getting by, making minimum payments and just kind of, robbing this month to pay for last month and trying to keep up with it. When you lay it out like this, there's no lie. It's just right in front of you. So it's really healthy.
Yeah, and one of the neat things that I believe all of the credit cards have this on it now. I might be mistaken there, but I have seen that on some of the statements that I've reviewed with people in the past now, is that not only does it tell you, your balance of your credit card and your minimum payment, it also has a short line that says, if you were to pay the minimum payment, it would take you X months to get out of this credit card. And some of those, I don't know if you've looked at that, and it might be in some smaller print there, but some of those are 5 years, 10 years, 12 years. It's a long process for something that it can be very painful to look at that, and you wonder, okay, what am I actually giving the credit card people money for something from years and years ago, and you're still paying on it. And it's very eye-opening. So take a look at your next credit card and see if they have that, and look at that calculation. The other piece to look at on a credit card statement is to actually look at how much of interest that you're paying on that. And then as well, if you don't make it on time, goodness, there's another, what, $30, $40 worth of payments on top of that as well. My last little piece on the budgets here is total expenses and then balance and payments on debts. I put 4 lines here because the typical person has 4 credit cards or 4 notes that they have to pay on that. At this point, this should come to an exact 0 based on the amount of income that you're getting and the amount of balances that you have left. You end up with a 0 budget. And basically what we're saying is that every dollar that we came into is accounted for. It doesn't get much simpler than that, but it is a very difficult process, and it can be painful because sometimes when you get down here, you'll look at that balance and it's minus 100. Well, that means we've got to go back up to the top and look at, okay, do we remove a subscription? Do we remove some health visits? Do we remove some clothing and food, or do we remove some auto payments? Some of these things are easy to adjust, some of them not so easy to adjust. But at the end of the day, like that little video that we just watched, if you don't have it, you shouldn't buy it. It's as simple as that. It takes a little bit of practice to get it in, but it's a work in process.
Hey, Matthew.
Yeah.
I'll interrupt again. What we've done now that we've been able to track this spreadsheet for a while is we can look backwards and see how many things popped up that we didn't plan for. Because if you look at your budget, it doesn't cover everything. What happened when the washing machine broke down? What happened when the car needs tires? You've got gas and insurance, but every car needs new tires, brakes, oil changes, windshield wiper blades. That's just minimal stuff. And there's always something. And so if you don't have a way to look backwards and see where your money went, you can't anticipate what might come up next year. So your budget might look really great. Look, it's going to have $10 left over, but you haven't anticipated anything that pops up, and they always pop up every month. Something pops up that you didn't plan for. It's a constant. Like, do you have a budget for birthdays? Are you buying someone a birthday gift? There's things that you're going to spend money on that you don't anticipate. And all these things can be tracked, and I can look back at it and I can anticipate it for next year's budget.
So what I did right here, what happens when, sure enough, we didn't plan on adding tires in our auto payments. And sure enough, we know exactly that our auto payment is $300. Our gas, we spent maybe not 50, maybe we only spent 45 this month. Insurance, we would know that that's the same, but oh, wait, we got a flat tire, so we had to go to Discount Tires. Well, there's $250 that we had to spend on a tire. You're going to look at that in your budget and say, oh, you know what? Maybe I should have budgeted for tires. Well, tires is not something that most people budget for, unless you're one of those guys that likes to put the penny upside down and look at the treads and see how much tread you have and put a budget in for that. But that's a typical emergency where you'd want to have something saved up so that you could take that money out of an emergency fund and put it in there. And again, we can always go back and talk a little bit further on how to create an emergency fund and how to put that together. But this is kind of how the budget works as you go from a budget to an actual. The other great one to work on, and I like to call it a tip, is restaurants and foods. And I think Robert and I talked about this with Kathy. Is we picked out a number that we said, hey, this is how much we're going to spend when we go to restaurants for the month of December. And I encouraged them. I said, okay, let's grab yourself an envelope, go to the bank on December 1st, pull out $500 or $200 or $300, whatever that number that you decided to be, and say, okay, that's your restaurant money. You're not going to use your debit card. You're not going to use your credit card. You have this little envelope that you're going to keep in your pocket. And every time you go to a restaurant, you get to take that money out. It's a big eye opener. And to me, I think that's one of the most exciting challenges of a budget, is doing something in a cash basis. And I know we always had some great conversations between Kathy and Robert and I about, oh yeah, you're right, I didn't realize what a hamburger costs. And I know McDonald's was the first company to start using, or first fast food that I'm aware of that started using credit cards, because they figured this out real early in life. When you go to a McDonald's or any other of your favorite fast food restaurants and you decide to buy a cheeseburger, and if you have cash in your pocket, the odds are you're going to buy your cheeseburger, you're going to buy your small fries and your drink, and you're going to go and eat and have fun. If you have a credit card in your pocket, the McDonald's learned this very early on in life, that they're going to upsell something and you're going to buy it because it doesn't cost you anything. There's no actual pain in handing a green dollar bill or a 5 or a 20 off to the cashier. You're just handing this piece of plastic and it just disappears into the ether. So the odds of you getting a full meal with a large fry and a large drink is significantly greater when you use a debit card versus when you have cash in your pocket. So that's one of my things that I always try to teach people as we go through is, practice a little cash action and see how that works. And then as well, at the end of the month, if you're on December 28th, and you realize that, you know, the money has been spent, that means, okay, the groceries, the restaurants, they're done until next month, and you start over again.
Okay, can I talk about that for a second?
Absolutely.
So, man, I can't emphasize how important it is for us for you to embrace this idea of spending cash for a while. I had no idea how much money I was spending because it was always going on a card. I'd only really know when I got the bill at the end of the month. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much we spent there. When we had to pay with cash and I had to go home and get that stupid envelope and then take it with us when we went to a restaurant or take out, hey, let's just grab 40 bucks. Let's just commit. We're not going to eat more than 40 bucks. So that means we didn't have drinks there. We just have a Coke or water. You know, we made a choice because we wanted to get the steak, so we didn't get this. It was like really weird, but we felt that the cool part was I felt like I was in control. When I got the credit card statement, I did not feel like I was in control. I felt like I was screwed. And I forgot what a great night that was at that moment. It wasn't any fun to go to dinner at that night. I was looking at a bill like, oh my gosh, we spent 600 bucks on dinner this month. But when we started using cash, it became a reality. We made better choices. And even though it's a pain, if you're sick of having debt and being driven by your debt, you're going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to do something different. That's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing and think it's going to get better. It does not. So if you're going to embrace this, embrace these ideas that Matt's sharing with you and really say, okay, it'll be difficult or weird or different, but I'm going to do it because I don't want to be stuck under debt anymore.
That's absolutely right. The credit cards companies have figured out that if you don't see it, you don't feel it, and then it just goes on to push it down one more month, one more month, one more month. And I can't tell you how many times people have realized, like you say, it hurts. It's a little bit painful to pull cash out and to pay something with cash. It's time consuming. Some restaurants don't like you to pay in cash. Some gas stations don't like you to pay in cash. They encourage the credit card. Well, there's a reason, because it's just so easy to upsell to, oh yeah, there's a reason why there's you go to a gas station, and if you ever walked into the gas station around here in Texas in June, July, and August, there's always this giant barrel of sodas or something on ice sitting right there. Well, why is that? Well, because you've got your credit card right there, and it's so easy to just dip your hand in that cold water, grab a cold soda, swipe that thing with your gas, and you're off and running. And you didn't even realize that one can that you could have bought a dozen of those cans at the grocery store. This one, you know, this one particular ice cold can cost you probably $3, sometimes $4 for that thing. Planning also helps take away from emergencies. When you start looking at your restaurants, when you start looking at your grocery bills, you start making lists and start planning those things. That falls into your budget so that you can start understanding and telling your money what to do and where to go. So in a nutshell, we've looked at our monthly balances, we've looked at our budgets. I want to pull up the Mint software here real quickly here. So bear with me a second. Of course, I had it on my screen and now I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I pulled up Mint. This is a really neat one, and I tried to do a couple of things in it. But unfortunately, it wants me to put my account numbers in here. So I set up a small account so that I can look at it so that you can kind of see a little bit of what's going on here. Mint is through Intuit. There are, I can tell you, a dozen other softwares. This one is free. And if you use TurboTax, this will help tie into some of your TurboTaxes. And I know, I think Robert popped in something about your annual tax returns. And remember, you know, those, you know, each year it seems like they take a little bit more and your refund is a little bit less. So always keep an eye on that, and don't ever expect your tax return to pay for all of your debt and get yourself out of it. I used to use that when I was younger in life, and I realized that that's not a really good savings program to use going forward. Mint is, I can tell you that it's got budgets. It has bills. You can pay your bills online. You can get an overview of everything. Like I say, you can go into a tax hub and start paying your taxes here. You can watch all your transactions. You can set goals. This is This is really just like all the other ones, everything you need in a nutshell. In fact, there's an app for this set up so that you can have it on your telephone. If you have a spouse, both of you can see all the transactions and it works. The drawback that that I always tell people on this is that it's just so simple. And unfortunately, when everything ties in together and it's so simple, you tend not to feel the struggle of putting something together. That's why I have paper all over my desk, sometimes using it by hand, doing it on paper, doing it on pencil, at least for a first couple of months, gets you started and gets you rolling in the right direction. And then you can start using these. Things like auto pay, paying your bills so that you never miss a payment is amazing. I can't tell you enough about, getting things like that. When you get to a point when you can not have to look at, how much money I have in the bank, setting things up so that you can make sure that you don't get a late payment is amazing. I've looked at, many of my customers that I work with and have walked through. There can be, anywhere between $100 to $200 worth of late fees or overdraws. Well, that $100 or $200 could go, straight to paying an actual bill that you want to have if you had scheduled it correctly. So that's what budgets help us to do. That's what plans help us to do, is get those things working for you instead of against you. Because there's no greater pain sometimes than to realize, oh man, I've got a late fee, or I forgot to pay a bill, or I'm overdrawn. Making sure that we take time to look at these bank accounts on a daily or weekly basis is invaluable for everybody.
Yeah, Matt, and I think that the idea that meant that I was attracted to is a lot of people will have a wad of dough in their pocket and they'll go out and do stuff and they'll spend $2 here and $3 there. And, next thing you know, they got, well, it doesn't add up because I had somewhere like $50 miscellaneous for the week. And if you have the Mint app and you just pull up real quick and say, fast food really quick, about $8 here, it's easy for you to be able to track it. And I think that is one of the things we're just not aware of. And in part of our early budget, we had a miscellaneous column that was sick. Like, what's in there? There's no way we should have a $300 or $400 miscellaneous each month. So we had to figure out, we got to go back to putting things in buckets and really saying, how do I know what to cut back if I have a miscellaneous budget? I don't know where anything went. Where do you go?
Absolutely. The miscellaneous budget can be a killer, but it's important to have, because we can't document and detail everything out, but putting things in there so that we can start watching it, start looking at it. And if we don't write it down, we're not going to see it. It's not going to be visible. And that's where, coaching, that's where partners come into play, is start putting these things down, making a plan, and start watching it through. So that is really,
mute your phone, big guy.
I think I can get it here. There we go.
All right,
Did that do it? There we go. So in a nutshell, that's the budgets. That's the plan. It's probably oversimplified, but again, it's not about math. It's not about education, and it's not about jobs, because we're all here. We're all working. We're all doing well. But it's the education of, how do we put this in the right place? How do we control what we're spending? And how do we keep an eye on it and start watching these little dimes, little nickels, little dollars, sometimes thousands of dollars, and making sure that we know where our money is going and what it's doing, and making it work for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So that's what I have. Simple and easy. Does anyone have any questions? We've got our chat box if you want to pop anything up there, or I'm here to